Heidi ho, fellow YouTubers. Today's video is all about a camera dolly. Okay, these are a very useful thing when you're making your videos. You can create some nice movement with these. They're not that hard to make. This one I made for myself. It's made out of steel. I welded it all together. It cost me around about $100 and something odd by the time I bought all the wheels, the tubing, the whole lot, the track, etc. But it doesn't need to cost you that much. You can actually make one out of some wood like this, okay? And a bit of steel to mount the wheels onto, and we'll screw that to the actual wood like that. We'll cut a piece off and we'll just screw it on there, and we'll drill the holes to put the wheels on either side. This is just an off cut of wood I had floating around. It's an off cut of steel I had floating around from another project. These are a couple of skateboard wheels I had for another project. I bought this second-hand skateboard from an op shop. I think it cost me about $7. So we're going to need that. We're going to need a scrap of either plywood or some MDF. We're going to be making some triangles out of this, and we'll be using the triangles to brace this piece of wood to the adjoining piece of wood. So we're going to have to form a T-shape. So we're going to have to cut the wood to make a T-shape, and we'll use the plywood across here to form a triangle to reinforce it, to make it a little bit stronger. Now, how much wood you're going to need depends on what type of tripod you got. You'll work that out when you put your tripod up. You'll measure between two legs, and then from the centre of those two legs to the third leg, and you just add another, I don't know, 4 inches, 100 mil to that to work out how long your piece of wood is. And from that, that's how you work out your shopping list, okay? So I'm going to get started and cut up a couple of pieces of wood, and then we'll start working on our T-shape. All this should take probably about a couple of hours to make. So we'll get started. Well, I've cut the two pieces of wood, okay? So these are the pieces of wood now we're going to use. Yes, it's got a bit of a dag on each end, but we'll fix all that up, it's not a problem. Okay, so really, we should go that way around. That's what we'll end up with. So that's the basis of our dolly. Now with the piece of plywood that we had here, what I'm going to do with this piece of plywood is I'm going to cut basically a piece off like that just to form a triangle. That piece of triangle will then go over the top like that way around, and that'll help reinforce our dolly together. We'll have one top and bottom. That'll be the next step. So I'll go cut those, and I'll be back in just a minute. Well, there you go. That's it. That's what we're aiming for. Okay. Nothing flash. Yeah, still got the piece of, there you go, it's gone. And that one too. So the next thing I'll be doing is cutting up some steel. I may use the slotted steel, I'm not sure. I'll have to work it out. I just need some bolts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut literally along there. So I'll have one section, then I'll cut along there, I'll have a second section, and along there, and I'll have a third section. So we really just want a couple of the sections there, so that way around it will be a little short piece there, and we'll mount the wheels onto that. So we'll need a couple of bolts for each one, probably 4 bolts per section, okay, so 2 bolts per section, 4 nuts per section. The nuts will be used as spacers because the bearings are recessed, so we're going to need maybe 1, maybe 2 nuts for the spacing, I'm not sure. I'll work it out as I go along, and we'll explain it as we go along. Okay, so the next thing to do is to start cutting the steel, I guess, and drilling the holes for the bolts. Okay, hacksaw. And we have 3 pieces of metal already. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to fix one on the end there, one that way, and this one will be this way. Okay, so you can get a bit of an idea. Each one of those brackets here, what I'll end up doing to fix them onto the wood. Normally if it was steel, I'd just tack weld them on, it wouldn't be an issue. But with this one, because we're using it onto wood, because we want to do it as cheap and as simply as possible so that anyone can really do it, I'll probably end up drilling a hole through the back of the steel here putting a screw straight through it and screwing it down to the wood. Possibly over time these will move or twist a little bit, but there are ways of stopping it from doing that. We could probably put some extra screws in the side which will hold it there, but I worry about that if it starts to happen. It's not a major deal. I've seen others like this before which they've moved a bit, and it's only a simple matter of undoing the screw a little bit, straightening them up and doing the screw up a little bit tighter. Okay? So that's where we're up to at the moment. So the next step will be to make the slots a little bit bigger, because the bolts we're probably going to be using are 8mm, and I don't think they're quite 8mm. These are generally, it's an imperial size. That's the 8mm bolt there, and it doesn't quite fit through, so maybe a little bit of a file with a rat tails file or something like that will make the bolt slip through. I know it's very difficult to try and drill a slot. I've tried it in the past and hasn't always worked, so a rat tails file will probably be the easiest thing, or even a small square file, anything just to make that slot that little bit wider where you want to put the bolt. For the length of the bolts, I'm not exactly sure at the moment. I'll have to get a tape measure out and work that out, but all the measurements I'll give you in a minute, okay? So that's where I'm up to at the moment. I've just got to get some bolts out and we'll start to work on that part of it. So we're slowly progressing. And this has taken me, what, half an hour from start to this point at the most, okay? All right, I'll go and get some bolts. I'll be back. Well, I've just got back from the hardware, buying a few bolts. I bought some metric bolts. They're 8mm, 50mm in length. I bought packets of nuts, screws, plenty of extra nuts too, just to be on the safe side. I finally filed and drilled the holes. You may not be able to see, but I've actually filed the slots just in the middle, just big enough to be able to put the bolt through it, so it goes in without any problem now. Okay. What I'm going to do next is start assembling the whole lot. I'll put a couple of nuts on. Each bolt is going to require 2 nuts as spacers. Just quickly nick those up. You may need an extra spanner to actually tighten these up as well, to hold it so it doesn't move. One of those. Now I also have, because I removed these wheels from the skateboard, some nylon lock nuts, which I'm also going to use, which don't want to do up. That's fine, we'll just go back to a normal nut for the time being. That should be fine. If your nuts here do come undone, just put a bit of paint on the threads before you do the nuts up, and the paint will act as a lock nut and hold it there. Okay, so that's it. First wheel's on. See? Stand over a bit closer. All right. On to the next second bolt. The problem with buying most of these packets is you only get a certain amount of bolts in each packet, and if this packet comes with a quantity of 4, we need 6, so you have to buy 2 packets. You're stuck with buying 2 packets every time you want to build something. So always take that into consideration when you're building stuff. Sometimes you're better off to buy a few extra bits and pieces because you know you will be using them again on another project. So at home I have in my garage an assortment of nuts and bolts, various types and lengths, in containers, because I know that I will eventually use them. All right, with those on there. And the concrete saw starting up again. I was trying to get this done as quick as possible before he started. Okay, so this is the first one made. As you can see, all ready to go. We'll start on the next one. Seem to have mislaid a wheel, but I'm sure it's around. Oh no, it is in front of me. I'm just going blind in my old age. Okay, next bolt. Sorry about the concrete cutter in the background, but he wasn't there when I started this morning. Okay, second one done. Lucky last. So that we'll put the 2 odd wheels on the one bracket, just in case there's any issues. Just open up this other packet. Third one done. That's it. Okay, so now we're ready to start screwing them down onto the wood. And once we've done that, it's ready to actually be used. And it's probably, in real time, taken me about an hour to make this. From starting to talk to you, to cutting bits and pieces, to doing everything else in between. Okay. Just get some more screws. Now, one thing is a good idea when you're doing this, just so you make sure that you have all your wheels in a straight line parallel to each other. What you could do is run a piece of timber across between the front and rear wheel, a piece of piping, whatever you've got lying around. I'm just going to go and find a piece of timber. I think I had a scrap piece of timber over there, just lying in the pile. That looks pretty good. I'll lift it off without moving it too much. I reckon it could go over a tad more and still be... I think that's better there. Okay, so it's reasonably straight there. A couple of screws to screw it down and we're just about done. Okay. Now I know I moved it just slightly as I was starting to screw it down. That's about where it was. well, that's it. That's pretty much our finished model. There's nothing, say, too hard about it. Most people with average sort of skills could make something like this. There's only one other thing which might be useful that I've done on this particular one, is I've screwed some plastic cups to actually put the feet into. You don't have to do that. It's up to you. What you could do is just mark where the feet of the tripod sit and just drill a small hole or a series of holes and just dig out the wood so the feet can sit into it. You can buy something like this. This is what they call an end cap to PVC piping for blocking it off, for drains, that sort of stuff. I think they were about $1.50 each from Masters when I bought them, but you can use something similar to that. Okay, we'll give it a bit of a test drive. I'll just move everything over out of the way and we'll have a bit of a run on the track with the camera. Okay? And that's our dolly, running on a piece of PVC piping. This morning I dropped past the plumbing supplies and bought some PVC piping. I bought 2 lengths of 2 metres each and 1 metre length. Now this piping is 40 mil in diameter. It's about 1.5 mil thick. It's more than strong enough for your dolly. What you need to do next so that you can join other lengths straight onto these is make yourself a couple of joiners. Now the joiners are basically just an offcut piping like that. That's about, I don't know, 150, 180 mil long, something like that. Then what I've done, I've cut it so that it actually has a piece taken out of it like that. So you end up with a slot down the centre like there. The reason you do that is that you can then squeeze the pipe nice and tight like that, and when you do that you're able to slip it into the piping, and that then becomes your joiner to enable you to join onto another piece of piping. So it's only a matter of squeezing that piece and it goes into there. The only thing you need to make sure is that when you do cut it there, you make a nice straight 90-degree cut on both your pieces so they butt together nice and tight. That way you won't get any bumps as the dolly goes over them. And that's all there is to it. So you can go out and buy as many lengths of PVC pipe as you like, and you can start joining them all together and making yourself quite a long length of track to do a really good long dolly shot. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.